Tucker Carlson is promoting insurrectionism, it appears, or at least has a guest on who is, with this big lie about the Second Amendment. It's amazing. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Tucker Carlson goes full insurrectionist, promotes AR-15s to use against the government. Again, let's just clearly establish, again, another one of these Republican talking points, because they've been bought and paid for by the gun industry. Make no mistake about it. This is a multi-billion-dollar, multi-hundred-billion-dollar industry that pays its shills very, very well. And prior to the 1970s, nobody in America, all the way back to the founding of our republic, nobody in America was ever trying to make the serious case that the reason the founders wrote the Second Amendment the way they did at the time they did was because they wanted Americans to have weapons that they could use against our own government. Nobody ever made that case. That case on its face is seditious. On its face is treason. Yes, let's take down the government with guns. That's called a coup. That's not called democracy. The founders not only never imagined that, if they ever, I'm sure that they did in some point, George Washington put down an armed rebellion. As president, he put down an armed rebellion, the Whiskey Rebellion. They did not, in their wildest dreams, think this would be a good thing. And it wasn't until the 1970s when the National Rifle Association's magazine, The Rifleman, published this article by this 17-year-old kid, this high school kid, who just kind of made up this fantasy that the Second Amendment was there so we could prevent tyranny. And back in the 70s, it was in the frame of, if the communists ever really succeed in taking over America, we need our guns to fight back. Because there was this big fear about the communists. Richard Nixon had been going on about that. Keep in mind, this was just a couple of years after the end of the Nixon presidency, and Nixon had been going on for at some length about the communists in Vietnam and the communists in the Soviet Union, and he had been part of the whole McCarthy thing, and the communists in the State Department and the communists in the Army McCarthy hearings. And so it was, we got to have our guns to protect us from the damn communists. And every time a Democrat came along and said, well, maybe we should make education free, college for free. Oh, you're a communist. Well, how about health care? Shouldn't everybody have health care? Oh, you're a communist. And it worked for years. But the NRA published this article, and it struck a chord with the white nationalists, with the people who, keep in mind, this was the same time that Brown versus Board of Education was starting to be enforced in a real way. It happened, Brown v. Board was in 1954. There was a subsequent decision a year or two later, and forgive me, I can't recall the name of it. It's been a lot of years, but there was a subsequent decision that said that, yes, Brown should be put into place. Basically the argument from the states was, we need more time if we're going to desegregate our schools or if we're going to integrate our schools. We need more time. And so the Supreme Court in the second decision following Brown said, with all due, whatever the word was, yes, but, right, essentially. And they gave them this there's no urgency kind of message. And so it took 2 decades for Brown to even, the whole busing thing, it happened in the 70s. And the blowback to that was, oh my God, there's black people moving into my neighborhood. I need to have a gun. And that's when this thing really went full nuts, and white people didn't want to say, well, we have to have a gun because black people were rioting in Detroit in response to police violence, therefore they didn't want to say we got to fight back against the commies. And it became like an article of faith. So last night on Fox News, Tucker Carlson has this guest on. News Corp over on Daily Kos refers to him as an ammosexual. Kalyan Noor, who once hosted a show on the NRA TV network, which is now out of business. So Carlson says, why, if somebody does something horrible in Boulder, does that mean you should strip from people the single most popular sporting rifle in America? That would be the AR-15. The one that commits relatively few crimes. More people are killed by a factor of 5 by knives than by rifles in this country. Why are they so intent on taking this one away? And his guest on Fox News, this is what your grandpa is hearing on Fox News. Honest to God. His guest says, and I quote, because honestly, if you really look at it, a lot of people like to undervalue what the Second Amendment was actually written for. It was designed to be a check against the government. See, here's this big lie. This is a complete lie. Anyhow, he goes on to say, a lot of people don't like to talk about that aspect. Of course, it was also there to allow us to defend ourselves, but if you think about it, the AR-15 symbolically and literally is the best defense against a tyrannical government. The best defense against a tyrannical government, as the guy who wrote the Declaration of Independence said, is an educated and informed public. And what we have is a miseducated and misinformed, malinformed public, intentionally uninformed public, or an intentionally wrongly informed public. And I would add to that the best defense against a tyrannical government is for the people to become, more deeply interpenetrated with the government, for us to show up and get inside our political parties. If you're, my opening rant was to Republican voters, and I was saying, if you're a Republican voter of good conscience, you can join the Democratic Party. They'd welcome you. Well, let me add to that. If you're a Republican voter of good conscience, you might want to try and take over the Republican Party and turn them into something at least rational, because it is not a bad thing in a democracy for one political party that I like a lot to have a loyal opposition. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.